Okay guys, this is going to be the last cultivation video I make of the year. We're at day 19. We're in a bean field. The lesson for today is patience. So this field, this was the last field I planted. We're in that big bottom here. We're in the big bottom next to the river. So this field, what happened on this field, I was talking about, we had the dry time and I was afraid of losing my moisture. Well, the other bottom fields and my hill field there at home, I pushed the moisture I was planting at day 4 and 5, but then the heat set in day 6 and 7. And I didn't want to plant in that heat, and so this bottom, I let it wait until day 8 after the rainfall event to plant. And so the lesson that I want to try and convey is on bottom ground or, real good soil like this that holds moisture very well. You can see just how it handles moisture. It's just beautiful sugar dirt. But anyway, 8 days after the rain, I was able to come out and plant, and I had perfect moisture, got a perfect stand. And the beans came good. I was at the same depth as those beans I planted at day 4, but I got a lot better emergence. Some of that was due to the heat, and some of that was due to reading the moisture. So there is a correct moisture to plant at, and I, the dry time scared me into crowding that interval probably a little bit too much. That was a mistake I made. So there were, in effect, 2 mistakes I made this year. The 1st of May, burning the moisture that I had at that point, thinking that more would come. And then the 1st of June, in hindsight now, I crowded my first bean fields. I crowded planting them too close to that rainfall event, and that and in the heat. And the net effect was the stands on those fields is not as good as this field, and they're going to be a lot weedier. So in this field, what has happened in this field? Looking down here at the row, Deborah was saying that the weeds look a little bit bad, but we planted this field 8 days after the rain. The beans here are 19 days old. So 3 days after I planted the beans, we had a rainfall event. It wasn't much, but it was enough to bring a flush of weeds. So I'll just walk over here real quick like. This was a foxtail. This is a giant foxtail, and he came right at the same time that I planted. But there are only a very few of those out here relatively. Anyway, so we planted, then we had the rain about 3 days after I planted. It brought on a flush of everything. At day 9, I rotary hoed, and the rotary hoe just cleaned the rows perfect. Now in the intervening time, we can see a little baby foxtail there, another little foxtail, more morning glory coming. In the interval between that, we've had there is a pigweed that was probably survived the field cultivation prior to planting. He's a survivor. He was born in May in the hot dry time. But anyway, in the interval, we've had good rains now, guys. We've had a couple inch rains, and we had a 50 here a couple days ago. But we're out here with the Danish tine. Don't look at it. I let it all the way down so it wouldn't squawk at your crank when I was trying to talk here. But what is going on with the Danish tine? I've got it pulling true. This is my starter cultivator, and it is finally pulling perfectly true and running where it's supposed to be running. This was the field where we did the corn video, and we had the 150 bushel corn. And so my problem out here today is the corn residue. Every now and again, the corn residue will plug between the rows. And so how I'm combating that is I have my rolling shields. There's weight on the chains. They're not free forming the ground. Like I said, we're at day 19 because we finally had these rains. The beans are jumping. We have had a little break in the heat for the last week, and so the beans finally got it in gear and got to going. But I have pressure on my chains. The rolling shields are actually running about an inch off the ground. The points of them are running an inch off the ground. And when I'm doing that, I'm getting a field that looks like that. Having a hard time seeing here with the shadow, but we'll run a little bit in the tractor and discuss it a little bit more, and I will show you the contrast. The other thing I wanted to say, in this bottom ground, the weeds that I had, the foxtail, what came with that first rainfall event 3 days after planting was red root pigweed and foxtail. And the morning glory is always coming, it's always here. But we came in for that rotary hoeing, and we wiped out the foxtail, and we wiped out the red root pigweed and the water hemp. I mean, that stuff is gone. It's soft, and there was a beautiful crust on the ground, and the rotary hoe broke the crust. I was gonna see if I could find a survivor. So there's a survivor, but we had a lot of red root pigweed. But the rotary hoe came along and it whacked them. There's a red root pigweed that survived that first field cultivation. But the rotary hoe did a number on those. What it did not work on is the morning glory. And it did not kill the big foxtail. So we're going to go up here a little bit, and we're going to get into solid, thick morning glory, and you're going to see what the cultivator's doing. It's just wiping the morning glory. Okay guys, we're in the section of this field where there's morning glory. That survived the rotary hoeing. Came 3 days after the beans, and so we have the height differential. The beans have the major jump. The morning glory is almost to the point that it's wanting to start stretching out its vine. I've told you that before. I don't want the morning glory to stretch out its vine too much or it'll catch on the cultivator, but the morning glory is right at the point where he's just barely starting to extend, and he is super vulnerable. The cultivator action, show him the behind view, honey. The morning glory is at the point where just that soil action of stirring the soil that much is just wiping them out. They don't stand a chance. That was one of the reasons I waited on this field. You know, I've told you before time and again, I like to be there at day 14, 15, 16. Well, if we had normal temperatures, normal rains, I would be here at that interval. But this year, I'm at a later interval. It's not a problem. I wanted the morning glory to get to that point right where it's at. And if you're looking in that up ahead view, we're going to run up here into spots where it looks like it's solid morning glory. In this bottom, the primary weeds are velvet leaf, morning glory, red root pigweed. And the velvet leaf, I don't know, I'm having a hard time finding a single velvet leaf out here. I haven't seen a cucumber. But the morning glory, it thrived in these, you know, small rainfall events. And it's right at the point, okay, now we're getting into thick morning glory. But the poor little morning glory, it just doesn't stand a chance. It's being wiped. And any morning glory that does survive here, it'll probably be on this field since I'm doing such a good pass this first time. Oh, there's a plug deer. So I'm talking to you guys and I'm not necessarily watching my mirrors. That film the plug deer. That's me screwing up, guys. Anyway, I'm supposed to be watching in my mirrors for plugs. Where was I at? I lost my train of thought.
We're talking about morning glory.
So the morning glory, yeah, right. So there will be an interval, since this field is cleaning up as nice as it is, there will be an interval, probably, I don't know, maybe 7 days before I come back for the next cultivation. And since I have such good weed control, this field will only need one more cultivation. So there will have been the rotary hoe and 2 cultivations. But I will come back with that aggressive cultivator. And by, 7 or 10 days from now, the beans will have really jumped, and the morning glory will have extended his little tendrils. So the ones that are in the rows will have extended their tendrils, And when the big cultivator with the aggressive shanks comes along, it'll grab those morning glory tendrils and it'll just rip the morning glory right out of the ground. So I don't know if you guys can tell it, but you have to be able to have gain perspective from experience. Me looking at this field right now, I can tell that it will be a perfect field. I'm going to be able to clean this field up, and you're going to have a hard time finding a weed out here other than those few ones that escaped the initial field cultivation. But this is going to be a clean field, and it's on bottom ground, so we're set up for the dry weather. Anyway, that's the end of the cultivation videos, guys. Thanks for all of your views. And if you get a chance, subscribe or tell somebody else to subscribe. It would be nice if we could get to 1,000 subscribers at some point